Hey everyone, my name's Nick.
And I'm Ray. And today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us for our last two episodes. In this one, we're going to do our 5 likes. What we liked about the show, which is a lot for me, probably Nick too. And then later in another episode, we'll talk about our 5 dislikes. All right, let's let you go first. What's your biggest like here?
So my number one like for the show was the writers slash showrunners, just mainly them putting aside their ego, using the main storyline, using scenes word for word, and just making a great flow to the overall story while keeping like a lot of the original content.
I think I'd have to agree. My biggest like would definitely be the writing as well. The dialogue that came from the game, that was just awesome dialogue they kept. And then they may have tweaked a word here and there every now and again to make it flow a little better on screen, but the dialogue was the dialogue, and it was really well acted, well done. But we've seen really good actors with bad scripts before, and it's not
Yeah.
great. And this is great writing, which I feel like even bad actors could have made shine because it was just written so well.
Yeah, in these recent years we've had a number of just terrible adaptations, especially in the TV show format.
Lord of the Rings.
And yeah, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, this most recent Witcher Blood Origins were
Yeah.
just awful, just absolutely terrible adaptations. So it's a breath of fresh air to get some writers that don't think that they are better than the source material and just use that source material and their skills to make it great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I also just want to point out it. I think the biggest reason that happened is, I mean, HBO is pretty good about letting writers do well, but also they had, the actual creator of the game as a lead writer slash showrunner. So I think that
Yeah.
helped a lot. And I hope in adaptations in the future, if you're able to, get the creator of the story on board, have them help write. All right. Now, as for number 2, I would go ahead and say the characters themselves, even the ones we saw on screen for barely any amount of time, all of them were well acted, well written, and the characters just had depth, motivations. You could tell right
Mhm.
off the bat. And I really empathized with most of them right off the bat. So characters is number 2 for me. The characters were just great.
Yeah, not only the characters, but the actors behind the characters as well. Every single one of them sold their performances. I can't think of a single character that I saw brought in for, more than a few seconds that wasn't good. Even that old couple in, the middle of Wyoming,
Yeah.
like even they were just great.
Yeah, it's just a big round of applause to all the actors there and the characters that were made. Like that was a good combination of writing the characters and then having people actually care about acting in the characters and like actually making them feel legit. Because I mean, sometimes you'll have a really good character and some dude just doesn't want to do it, and he'll go in there half baked.
Mhm.
John Travolta, with half of his movies. But then you have people like Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. They were killing it throughout this, I think, and that's probably my number 2 thing here. Now, for number 3, it's just the character development that happened. I thought the character development that happened was incredibly well done. It was well spread out. Nothing felt too fast, too slow. I mean, maybe there were parts at
Mhm.
times where it did, but overall, as a whole, it crushed it in that regard. And I mean, you can have characters without character development that are great,
Mhm.
but the character development that happened was super well executed, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the character development between Joel and Ellie was
Hmm.
just fantastic. Even on episode 3 with Phil and Frank being brought in, like just a single one-off episode, that character development was obviously fantastic, and it just happens through the whole thing. Joel's brother, just all the relationships were
Yeah.
developed pretty fantastic.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is like good writing really makes good entertainment, right? And our
Yeah.
first 3 biggest likes here all pertain to writing. And for me, it kind of demonstrates that writing is key to these shows. It's not all about the special effects or the Michael Bay explosions, right? Or the Hans Zimmer scores. It's
Mhm.
writing that's paramount to it. With that, my big number 4 here, world building slash set design. Now, we already know the world, it's Earth. United States.
Wha-
Crazy, right? They didn't build
Sure.
that. But the setting the scene with the 1960s, 1970s doctor guy going like, "Oh, mushrooms are going to get us because of global warming," right? And then
Hmm.
that initial set, like, that's world building right there. That initial
Hmm.
foreshadowing, and then the world we get prior, and then with the world we get after, all of that felt so seamless, so well done. And then, going throughout, seeing these different QZs that all act differently, these different groups of militias or raiders or cannibals, all of it's just, you do expect, but you don't expect the full gravity of what's happening. In Kansas City, we knew something was weird underground. We didn't know the full scope of that, and then that big buff random zombie guy that came out and just started smacking people, right? With the David dude, we didn't realize, I mean, we kind of felt something was off about him. We were like, I don't know. And then turns out he's cutting up and eating people and raping people, right? That's a bit extreme. All of them were well done. There was foreshadowing that was really well done for it. And yeah, just overall, the set design played a huge part in that too. It looked messed up, these cities overgrown with mushrooms and foliage and the forest back
Hmm.
environment. They just really nailed it, I thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed, especially I enjoyed the development of like, or I should say the explanation of the zombies, how all the cordyceps, like there's different types of cordyceps because obviously like there would be this natural evolution of things depending on how these mushrooms grew on their hosts.
Hmm.
That was really cool. The set designs were awesome, like especially in the first two episodes whenever they're going through Boston, like all that overgrown city just looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the sets were awesome, and I really enjoyed the zombies and like their whole mycelium network where you got these orange things. You can't touch them. I wish there was more, but that's okay.
Yeah. We'll get into
It
that
was
part.
the idea of it was still fantastic, and I really enjoyed the scenes that we did get.
And the final biggest thing I really liked here was pacing. The pacing of the show throughout the entire thing was good. It wasn't the best, which is why it's number 5 on the list, right? Because we had a
Hmm.
couple slow episodes, and we stayed with that Melanie person a little bit too long, I thought. But overall, the pacing was pretty good, and you don't want to get bored when you're watching TV. You don't want it to go too fast, like what happens sometimes in the Wheel of Time. It's a good example of that, or Lord of the Rings, where they're like, "Oh, we'll be in Numenor for 4 days, and then we'll just show up randomly and have the final
Yeah.
battle in one episode."
Yes.
With a volcano erupting on me, by the way. So I thought the overall pacing was good, and it allowed everything to really shine.
Yeah, it's number 5 for a reason. There are definitely some slow parts to it that could have been picked up a little bit more, but there was a lot of good suspenseful moments. The payoffs at a lot of these endings were, a lot of the ends of the episodes were really good. It was overall good pacing.
Overall, the show was really well done. I don't know how long they spent in pre-production, but I would bet that they spent a good amount of time on planning
Yeah.
everything out, because Peter Jackson, great director, Lord
Hmm.
of the Rings trilogy, those movies, they spent so many years in pre-production and setting everything up, planning everything, right?
Yeah.
And look how well those turned out. And then he got handed the reins to The Hobbit from Guillermo del Toro. He was supposed to do it originally, I think, and he,
Hmm.
he got it last minute, and he didn't have time for pre-production the same way he did. And look how The Hobbit turned out compared to
Hmm.
The Lord of the Rings. So
Yeah.
I really think they probably had a good amount of time for this, which is
That would make
great.
sense.
And I
Yeah.
would urge HBO, if you're watching this, keep doing that. Keep giving them time, because then we get great shit. We like that.
Yeah, taking the time to make sure everything is all lined up and it all looks good and it's all written well. It paid off for him. And HBO has a pretty good track record with now The Last of Us, with House of the Dragon, with Game of Thrones. I'm sure they have other really good shows as well. But in our genre of show that we like to watch, they have a really good track record.
Yeah.
I was happy with this one overall. There were some things that I wish they could have done better, which we'll talk about here in the next video. But overall, a great show. I had fun watching it, and I enjoyed season 1.
All in all, this was such a good show. It really was. Shows that we can do video game adaptations well. So let's get some more of them done properly here. You know, no Resident Evil style, none of that. Get us some good stuff. You know,
I like the first Resident Evil.
the first
but
one was
after
fine,
that,
but that second one, man,
Yeah.
was. I just rewatched them the other day, and it was.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, definitely aged. They have aged.
Yeah.
Anyways, with that, stay tuned for our next episode where we will talk about the things we disliked about it. With that, Ray, out.
Thanks for watching. Hey, Nick here. If you enjoyed this video, please gently caress that like button for us.
And Ray, thanks for watching. It was a blast. Make sure to hit that subscribe if you want to stay up to date with what we're doing, what me and him are doing. There. Me and him, Nick and Ray. Subscribe.